This is the one item I kept for the past 18 years, other than a few photographs. It's the coffee cup she would use every morning. It's the one thing I keep, and I try not to use it too often. This is an interesting one. I wrote up what I wanted to say, and I'll reflect on what I wrote to what I'm gonna say. But this is the 18th anniversary of losing my partner back in 2007. But there's 2 days that I honor Amanda. It's always on her birthday and always on the day she passed, which is this week. And it's not like I don't think about her the other days of the year. It's just that these days are a lot harder than the other ones. They're more in my face. I'm so grateful for what she taught me and helped shape who I've become. She helped me just by being her. I wouldn't have any idea of what our life would be like right now if this didn't happen. And I don't entertain what if scenarios, because what ifs they don't work in my favor. So I just accept things as they are, as it is. Most men don't like to talk about grief or grieving. I don't remember a last conversation I've had with a guy about it, or who's had that same experience as I have, or who can relate as much. And I can only speak to my experience. I can't talk about hypotheticals or things I haven't done or felt or gone through. It's just not something I do. But I can talk about how I've survived all these years. And back then, when it first happened, if I was going to survive, I needed to actively do something, because I was going down a spiral that was not good for me or anybody around me. See, I've dealt with death before Amanda passed, and this was just, it was a lot for me to handle. It'd be a lot for anybody to handle. I sought out my teachers, these authentic Buddhist teachers that were in the monastery in upstate New York, that I had the privilege to go and learn from and still learn from today. I needed to learn how to sit and how to work with my mind, how to understand my mind, how everything works from the inside out. I needed to learn how to face the pain, not just run away from it or bury it or do drugs to just not think about it. I needed to handle it a lot differently. And I needed to be there for my son, whom I love dearly, and who also gave me permission to go and learn what I needed to learn, so that eventually something good would come of it. I didn't go to find a religion. There were too many people saying the wrong thing at the wrong time when that happened. That turned me off from everything. I have my own experience with religion that I'm not going to talk about, but it's just not something for me. I didn't go to find happiness either. I went to try to find a way to deal with the pain and to face it head on. So I would travel back and forth from the monastery in upstate New York to New Hampshire, where I was living and had my businesses, my restaurants and stuff there. And I would travel back occasionally. Once a month I tried to see my son, to get tattooed, and to go to court. Because my first public speaking appearance was in a courtroom, defending the boy, the 17-year-old boy, who was responsible for Amanda's death in the car accident. We didn't want him to have to go to jail, so I defended him so he wouldn't have to. There was no sense in ruining more than one life. In that courtroom was the first time I ever spoke in public, outside of like high school or grade school, reading in front of the classroom, which I never really did. I was a very quiet student, skated by. But in that courtroom, there were people I didn't know, and the feelings and emotions. You know, I'm not a crier. I'm not one to I'm not one to default to crying. I could count on my hands how many times I've cried in my life. And that, in that courtroom, was one of them, where I had to hold up, or the table held me up in order to keep upright and speak. And talking while you're crying uncontrollably, ugly crying, some people call it, is not something I ever plan to do or ever want to do again. I would travel back and forth from the monastery until I decided to stay there, which I did for a few years. I dedicated my time in exchange for learning the tools of how my mind works and how to sit properly, how to meditate, how to practice, and how to be a part of something bigger than me. All those tools I learned, I still practice today, 20 years later. It's how I deal with things I can't fix. It's how I sit with discomfort and my failures and successes. It's what makes some people angry about me, because I don't ever show that much excitement, but I also never get that depressed or down anymore. And it's how I can let myself fall apart without having to chase after all the pieces. To this day, forgiving the person who was the cause of that accident is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And still, 18 years later, have never received an apology. He was advised against it by his lawyers. I didn't know how to keep living back then. I didn't know if I was going to be able to. But what I did know is how to chop an onion, and I knew how to cook. Even back then, 20 years, it's been roughly, we're coming on 40 years I've been working in kitchens, developing recipes, training chefs, helping lead some of the big retail companies and plant-based. Like, I've just been doing this all my life. It's just part of my life. People ask me if I have a job, I cook. That's pretty much the basics of it all. And nowadays, I am sharing on here with you to help with cooking more vegetables and more plant-based, less animals, less harm, in a world that is so disheveled right now. I still want to help alleviate some of that suffering, if not all of it, if I could. Cooking brought me back to life. It gave me, and still gives me, a way to help others, a way to be a benefit, and shift focus away from me and more towards helping and supporting. All of this has helped me naturally heal and help myself in a very deeply profound way that is super difficult to convey and explain, which I'm trying. I studied, and I still study, how to perform simple routines by keeping my head down, cooking for other people, sharing here on YouTube and doing videos now, cleaning up, and feeding others. It's what I'm meant to do. All of this, especially back then, helped me stay connected to life, when everything about my own life was pain and hurt. I know I'm not the only one that carries a loss like this. We all will have to at some point. And I am so, so sorry if you have felt this pain or you are feeling this pain. And those of you that know the pain, I still carry the wish that no one ever had to feel it or has to feel it. It was one of the things that really swelled up when I was going through that very emotional time for a good 2 or 3 years. Was super, super difficult for me. But I had a clear vision of, like, I don't want anybody else to ever feel this. Not my worst enemy, not that I have any, but like, I didn't want anybody to feel that much pain. It was horrible. And I still wish I could carry it for everybody and that nobody had to feel that much pain. Apologies for this being so deep and not my usual content of cooking, which I will get back into. And I can say that in a lot of videos, but we have a plan. I actually have somebody helping me now. We'll be doing this a lot more. and sharing some incredible recipes that you won't find anywhere else. But before I go, that if you're honoring somebody this week or this month or even today, or just missing somebody that you can't talk to or eat with anymore, drop their names in the comments and we can all remember them together. Because this community is amazing. And before I forget, I need to thank you for 2 videos back. The one when I talked about finding Gary, who's in training right now, and Frankie being attacked in the park. For all of you guys that hit that super thanks button and donated, thank you so much. Like, it means the world to me that you did that. It just means the world to me that you're here. It means a lot, and I appreciate you. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for being kind.